Hello. Today I have a rundown conclusion of the foundations, the 12 days of drugstore / affordable foundations. So my battery's dying already. Great. So I just wanted to sit down, and as you can see I'm in my dressing gown. I did just record a really chilled video which was the recreating my first ever makeup video, which I will link in the eye up here. I just wanted to sit down and tell you guys what I thought about the foundations, what I didn't like, what I did like, my favourite to least favourite. So I'm going to get straight into it. The first foundation I really liked, so the number one of the series, is the Revolution Conceal and Define Full Coverage Foundation. Everyone has been raving about this and I know why. It's definitely full coverage. It blended really nicely on the face with the bronzer, highlight, blush, etc. And also it dries down matte. Even though I do have dry skin, it does dry down matte and it doesn't cling to any dry patches, which is great. It doesn't go into fine lines, which is also great. So I would recommend this for all skin types, even though it's matte. Like I said, I have dry skin and it doesn't cling to any dry patches, so that is great. It lasts a really long time. I have been using this foundation the most lately. I wore it going out to a party and a meal and like for every day recently, and it has lasted a long time and it helps to make my makeup stay on longer. I did prefer this with a sponge, but I do like to apply this with a brush and then going over the top of it to get rid of any excess makeup with a sponge. I do like both applications, a sponge and a brush. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this. I'm going to put them up here. Why not? Okay, so the second one I have is the e.l.f. Flawless Finish Foundation, I believe this is called. This blended really nicely with a brush and a sponge. Again, I liked it with both applications. It blended really nicely in with the powders. The powder on top blended really nicely. It did tend to go into my smile lines, but I do now know I pack on the loose powder into my smile lines and on my forehead and on my concealer and stuff, and it does help a lot. It is a dewy finish, so again, if you are oily skinned, then I would recommend definitely to powder. But obviously because I do have dry skin, I love a dewy semi-matte finish, but this is a dewy finish. But you can get it to a semi-matte finish with powder. It actually looked nice on my nose. My nose hates foundation. Like this foundation, it went nicely on my nose and it actually stayed on my nose, so that is great. And it is definitely full coverage. You can definitely get a full coverage look with this, especially with a brush. So recommend this. This is in the shade Buff. Really nice tan shade. Really nice. The third one is the Colourpop No Filter Foundation. So this did go into my smile lines and my forehead lines. Like all foundations, they tend to do that anyway. It blended nicely with the powders. It blended nicely with a sponge and a brush. I think I did prefer it with a sponge though, because it just looked nicer, I suppose. I think any product looks nicer with a sponge, to be honest. Just my personal opinion. It is medium to full coverage. You can definitely get it up to a full coverage, especially with a brush. Again, a brush does help a lot when it comes to application. I would say it's a semi-matte finish. With powder you could probably get it to a matte finish if you prefer that. And it also lasts a really long time. I've used some of these foundations quite a lot after using them, because I did record them a while ago so I could do this video at the end. So it does last quite a long time. I have used this like on an everyday basis and also to a party, I believe, or was it a meal? It might have been a meal. Really like this foundation. Okay, so the fourth one is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation. I have the shade Nude Ivory. This is a foundation that lasts long. Again, it does last really nicely on the face, especially when you powder. Even though I have dry skin, I do always powder my face anyway. I feel like it sets it and locks it into place for longer. It did go into my lines, my forehead lines, smile lines, etc. But you're going to hear that with pretty much every foundation. It didn't necessarily like my nose though. It didn't cling to my nose as well as other foundations, other than like these three. So bear that in mind. I do use a brush and then obviously pat it in with a sponge and then obviously go over it with powder. So that will help a lot. It is definitely like a matte finish, and I would say you can get a medium to full coverage with this foundation. I like the application. If you know, I don't like getting foundation on my hands, and I like that you can just put it in and just apply it straight on your face, like the Revolution one. Okay, so next is this NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop Full Coverage Foundation. This I would say I prefer definitely with a sponge. It did go a little bit streaky on the brush side, but I am kind of putting that more towards the fault of the primer. I did apply the Can't Stop Won't Stop primer on that side, and I have heard quite a lot of people don't like that primer, and I'm kind of one of them. I haven't really tried it out much because I wanted to try this on its own, obviously to test it out on its own just to see if it was the primer, and I believe it was. I still need to check using that primer with other foundations because I still haven't done that. I will let you know in videos. I will try and do it in a video with like other foundations. This foundation also didn't really like my nose, but that's the same with most foundations. They don't tend to cling to my nose as well. I need to like build it up. It did go into my smile lines a little bit, but not too much, but it is a nice full coverage foundation, so that's probably why it goes into my smile lines, to be honest. So yeah, it's matte and it's full coverage. Really nice. I don't know if it's 24 hours though. Okay, so number 6 is the Maybelline Dream Satin Liquid Foundation in the shade True Ivory. This actually didn't go in my smile lines. I feel like more of a matte finish goes into my smile lines, but this is like a semi-matte to dewy finish, which I really like these days. It looked nice on my nose as well. I think that kind of relates to the dewy and matte finish. Maybe my skin just prefers a semi-matte to dewy finish now that it's dry. And then this is definitely a medium to full coverage. You can definitely get this up to full coverage if you wanted to, but on the everyday basis I just go for a medium coverage, and it's really nice. Obviously if you set it with powder it does go a little bit more matte for you oily people out there. But yeah, I really recommend this. This is really nice for every day. This is one that I haven't used as much as these like 3, 4, 5 but this is a really nice one, so recommend this. Okay, so next is the Rimmel Last and Finish Breathable Foundation. So this is the one with the funny applicator like this. So this was a really nice foundation. It went into my lines again as per usual. It didn't look cakey, which is great. Obviously I would say this is a medium finish. I don't think you could get a full coverage with this, just my opinion. This is a medium finish, so bear that in mind. It's again semi-matte. You could build it up to a matte finish with powder obviously, but yeah, this is a nice everyday foundation for me. I wouldn't wear this on like a night out or something like that. Okay, so number 8, I have the Barry M All Night Long Medium Coverage Foundation. I would definitely say this is like a light to medium finish. Medium is the heaviest you're gonna get. It didn't cling to any of my dry patches, which is great. Stick foundations don't tend to do that anyway, which is amazing. You get a decent amount of product in this compared to the other stick foundation I reviewed, which I'll mention in a minute. It blended really nicely with the powders like bronzer, highlight, blush and stuff. Didn't make them go patchy or anything, which is great. I would say it's a semi-matte finish. I wouldn't say it's a dewy finish like normal stick foundations would normally do. But this one was a bit different. I'm in the shade 2 Cashew. It is a little bit yellow, but it does like go nicely when you like blend all your bronzer. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that really. Okay, so next is the Rimmel Wake Me Up foundation. This is a really nice one for dry skinned people. It's definitely a dewy semi-matte finish, probably more on the dewy side. The scent is very strong, so bear that in mind if you don't like scents, but Rimmel foundations do tend to smell strong anyway, but the breathable one doesn't smell as strong as this one. This one has a very heavy scent. I would say this is more of like a summer foundation, as it is quite dewy and it's very lightweight on the face and it's a very light to medium coverage. I would say the heaviest you're going to get is a medium, so bear that in mind. It's definitely a everyday foundation for me. Not going to wear it on like special occasions and stuff, but it is a really nice everyday foundation. It did oxidize a little bit, so bear that in mind. I did get a tan shade, the 200 soft beige, which I have in other Rimmel foundations, but it is a tan shade, so it did oxidize a little bit and it doesn't feel heavy on the face, which is great. Next is the Collection Lasting Perfection foundation. Really love the concealer. This is a little bit different. It doesn't dry down as fast as that concealer, because that concealer dries down so fast, which obviously is a good thing about foundation, I suppose. I have the shade Warm Ivory 2. It did cling to dry patches a little bit around like my nose area and stuff, which is not great. This is why it's number 10 in the list. It went into smile lines and frown lines, but that's just like every foundation, I suppose. I would say it's a semi-matte finish, which is nice, I suppose. It wasn't the best foundation. It was only like $3.99, I think, so that's a good thing. But you're obviously getting what you pay for. I did prefer it with a sponge just because it just looked nicer and it brought out the semi-matte finish. There's not much else I can say about this. Next one is the Revolution Pro Full Coverage Camouflage Foundation. I have the shade F2. This was very cakey. This felt very heavy on the skin as well, so if you like a heavy full coverage foundation, then go ahead, buy it. It's up to you, isn't it? So it didn't like my nose whatsoever, especially with a brush. It just brushed off. It hated my nose, and it did cling to like dry patches and stuff, so that wasn't great. It definitely is a matte finish full coverage foundation, but this might be nice for oily skinned people, but obviously I have dry skin, so it clung to dry patches and it looked a little bit cakey on me. And I would say it's like it was full coverage, but then I didn't like the finish of it, so it like made me not like it, if you get what I mean. I did much prefer this with a sponge, definitely. It did blend nicely with the powders and stuff, but again, it was too dry for my skin, but it would be really nice for oily skinned people. So yeah. Okay, so last but not least is the Maybelline Superstay Multi-Function Makeup Stick. So I had a comment on my video saying that this could be a contour stick, which is great. I would probably use it as a contour stick because of the amount of product you get. Okay, sorry, my camera died. So this is not up my street. It definitely is not enough product, so definitely if you want to get it, it is $8.99, so I wouldn't pay that much for that amount of product and for a contour stick, I suppose, but it is a good idea. It's cakey on the face. Even though it's a stick foundation, I felt like it didn't perform like a stick foundation. It clung to my dry patches and it clung to my smile lines, frown lines and stuff. It's definitely not full coverage whatsoever. It says it's full coverage, but it's definitely not. I would say it's like a close to medium coverage, and I did not like this sponge whatsoever. It was just a waste of product, like a waste of money. Yeah, that's that. So that is my conclusion to that series. I really hope you enjoyed that series. Please make sure you let me know down below in the comments if you enjoy series like that one, like my Drugstore affordable foundation one. Let me know down below some other series I could do that you have in mind. I would love to do this again. I'm thinking about doing something with eyeshadow, so make sure you subscribe to my channel and have post notifications on, or just notifications, whatever it's called. And make sure you thumbs up this video if you did enjoy the 12 days of foundation. I will link the playlist up here, or up here I think it is. So make sure to go check that out. Thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure to check the actual reviews out if you haven't already. I love you to the moon and back, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.